Listen to me, woman. There comes a moment in your life when the noise stops. The calls stop. The distractions lose their grip. And in that stillness, you will hear something that will change you forever. I'm not talking about an idea. I'm not talking about a feeling. I'm talking about the voice of the one who created you. It will not be vague. It will not be subtle. It will be clear, direct, and unmistakable. But the question is, will your heart be quiet enough to hear it? The greatest enemy to divine clarity is not the devil, it's attachment. You see, God's voice is not competing for space in your life. It demands the throne. And many women cannot hear God, not because he is silent, but because their hearts are too full of people's opinions, full of wounds that never healed, full of responsibilities that God never assigned. And when your soul is cluttered, every sound feels like his. But only one voice is truly his. A woman who learns detachment learns discernment. Detachment is not the absence of love, it is the presence of perspective. It is the decision to let nothing and no one occupy the seat in your heart that belongs to God. When you detach emotionally and spiritually from what drains you, you are not becoming cold, you are becoming clear. And clarity is the breeding ground for divine instruction. God speaks loudest to the woman who can walk away. Walk away from relationships that dilute her purpose. Walk away from opportunities that compromise her values. Walk away from environments where her spirit shrinks instead of expands. Every step away from the wrong thing is a step closer to the right voice. This is why detachment is the highest form of trust. If you can only have peace when the people you love act right, when the job is secure, when your plans are working, then your trust is in circumstances, not God. But when your heart is anchored in him alone, nothing external can destabilize your spirit. And when your spirit is stable, you can hear him without distortion. Do not forget, in Scripture, the clearest moments of God's guidance came in seasons of separation. Abraham was told, leave your father's house. Moses heard him in the wilderness. Esther heard him in the palace chambers, cut off from her people. Ruth found him when she left her land. Why? Because separation reduces the noise, and when the noise fades, the voice rises. And detachment is the womb of destiny. A womb must be empty before it can carry life. Many women are trying to conceive a calling in a heart already filled with burdens, bitterness, and bonds. God cannot plant a seed of destiny in crowded soil. You must release the weights, the grudges, the dependencies, and when you do, you will carry something from him that no one can abort. God's voice is clearest when your heart is not entangled, because entanglement is the greatest source of distortion. When your emotions are tied to people, situations, or even your own desires, every whisper of your heart can begin to sound like the whisper of God. But his voice is not mixed with confusion. It carries peace, authority, and alignment with his truth. Yet, if your heart is holding on to things that were never meant to stay, you will interpret his silence as absence and your own feelings as his guidance. This is why emotional detachment is not a sign of coldness. It is a sign of maturity. It is the posture of a woman who understands that to hear God clearly, she must untangle herself from the noise of dependency, approval seeking, and fear of loss. Imagine a radio trying to pick up a signal while sitting in the middle of static interference. No matter how powerful the broadcast, it will sound broken, muffled, and unclear. That is exactly what happens to the human spirit when the heart is overloaded with unresolved attachments. Detachment is you turning the dial until the static is gone. It's choosing to step back from what pulls on your emotions so you can lean into what feeds your spirit. It is releasing your need to be understood by everyone so you can be understood by God. It is letting go of the people you've been clinging to, not because you stopped loving them, but because you refuse to let their influence be louder than his instruction. When the cords are cut, The voice of God does not have to compete. His words will come to you like a still, steady stream, unmistakable, undeniable, and utterly unshakable. That is the place where obedience becomes easy. Spiritual detachment is often misunderstood because people confuse it with being distant, unemotional, or uncaring. But in reality, detachment is not about shutting down your feelings. It is about placing them in the right order. It is about anchoring your emotions so deeply in God that no external situation has the power to throw you into confusion. When you are spiritually detached, you are able to love people without being blinded by that love. You can care deeply without allowing that care to cloud your judgment. Detachment does not make you less compassionate. It makes you more discerning. It gives you the ability to see a situation for what it truly is, not just what you hope it will be. When your emotions are unanchored, every storm feels like the end of the world, every change feels like a loss, and every disappointment feels like a betrayal. But when you have anchored your soul in God, the winds may blow, but your stability remains. This is why clarity thrives in detachment. Clarity is the absence of distortion, and distortion almost always comes from over-attachment. When you are too tied to a particular outcome, you will unconsciously twist God's words to match your desires. But detachment frees you to hear the truth, even if it challenges your expectation. It gives you the courage to act on what God is saying, not what you wish He was saying. It is the discipline of letting go internally so that you can receive direction externally without bias. And when that direction comes, you can move with confidence, knowing it is not your emotions leading you, but the one who sees the end from the beginning. Detachment is what makes your ears sensitive to the still, small voice without the interference of human noise. God calls the woman who can walk away from what weakens her, because destiny cannot be fulfilled while you are holding on to what drains your strength. There are seasons when the greatest act of faith is not running towards something, but stepping away from something. Many women miss divine assignments because they are too tied to relationships, environments, or habits that God never ordained. Walking away is not always about rejecting the bad. Sometimes it is about releasing the good that is no longer God's will for your next season. Strength is not proven in how tightly you can hold on. It is revealed in how willingly you can let go when God says it is time. The woman who can walk away is not careless or cold. She is courageous. She knows that obedience sometimes feels like loss before it feels like gain. He understands that you cannot receive God's new instruction while still being bound by old obligations that have expired in His plan. Every step away from what is draining you is a step toward what is meant to empower you. When you stay where God has already left, your spirit becomes restless, your discernment dulls, and your passion fades. But when you walk away in obedience, clarity rushes in like fresh air, and God's voice becomes unmistakably clear. It is in those moments of separation that He can reveal to you the next assignment without the interference of competing voices. The woman who can walk away trusts that what she leaves behind is not greater than what lies ahead. She knows her source is not the relationship, not the opportunity, not the approval. Her source is God alone. And that confidence makes her unstoppable in pursuing the path He lays before her. Detachment reveals where your trust truly lies because it exposes the foundation on which your peace is built. If your sense of security rises and falls with the stability of your relationships, the condition of your finances, or the approval of others, then your trust is anchored in circumstances, not in God. True trust is revealed when everything around you is shifting, yet you remain unshaken because your confidence is not in what can change, but in the one who never does. Detachment forces you to confront the truth about where your faith rests. It strips away the illusions of control and teaches you that no person, position, or possession is the source of your identity or your provision. When you are emotionally and spiritually detached, you are no longer driven by the fear of losing something, because you understand that what comes from God cannot be taken by man. This posture allows you to make decisions based on conviction, not desperation. You are not manipulated by flattery, nor are you paralyzed by rejection. Detachment trains you to receive both blessings and losses with the same steadiness, because neither defines your worth nor dictates your destiny. When your trust is rooted in God, you are free from the exhausting cycle of depending on external stability to feel internally secure. You no longer need everything to be in order to obey his voice. Instead, you can move when he speaks. Even if the ground beneath you feels uncertain, this unshakable trust becomes the filter through which you interpret life. And in that state, the voice of God is no longer competing with your fears. It comes through clear, direct, and with the authority that only trust-filled ears can fully receive and act upon. God's clearest instructions often come in moments of separation, because separation removes the voices, influences, and distractions that compete with his. Throughout Scripture, some of the most life-changing encounters with God happened when people were pulled away from the familiar. Abraham heard the call to become the father of nations only after leaving his father's house. Moses received his divine assignment while isolated in the wilderness. Esther discovered her purpose in the hidden chambers of the palace, cut off from her people. Ruth stepped into her destiny only after leaving her homeland behind. Separation has a way of stripping you down to your essence. No titles, no safety nets, no applause, just you and God. It is in this uncluttered space that his voice is amplified. When you are surrounded by constant chatter, opinions, and emotional entanglements, your ability to discern his direction becomes compromised. But when he pulls you into a place of stillness, what felt foggy becomes clear, and what felt uncertain becomes specific. Separation is not always comfortable. It can feel like loss, abandonment, or even punishment. But in reality, it is a divine strategy. God removes you from the familiar so he can give you instructions that do not fit the environment you are leaving. He cannot reveal the blueprint for your future in a place where people only see you as you have been, not as you are becoming. In separation, your dependency shifts. You no longer lean on the opinions of others for validation, nor do you rely on the patterns of the past for guidance. Instead, you lean fully on him. And in that surrendered posture, his voice cuts through every doubt, every fear, and every lingering hesitation with clarity that cannot be mistaken for anything else. Attachment is the womb of destiny, because only an emptied heart can carry the weight of a divine assignment. Just as a womb must first be cleared and prepared before it can nurture new life, your spirit must be free from unnecessary attachments before it can conceive God's purpose for you. Many women attempt to step into their calling while still holding on to old relationships, past disappointments, and unhealed wounds. But these burdens occupy the space where vision should grow. God cannot deposit the seed of a new assignment into soil that is already crowded with weeds. Detachment is the process of clearing the ground, removing what drains your energy, clouds your perspective, or steals your focus. It is a spiritual cleansing that makes room for something greater. When you let go of what was never meant to stay, you open yourself to receive what was always meant to be yours. This is why God will sometimes lead you into seasons where certain doors close and certain people leave, not as punishment, but as preparation. The pain of release is often the proof of growth. And while it may feel like you are losing, in reality, you are being positioned to carry something so significant that it cannot share space with distractions. Just as a mother protects what she carries, you will find yourself guarding your spirit more carefully once God plants his vision within you. You will be selective about your environment, intentional about your relationships, and discerning about your commitments. The womb of destiny cannot be careless with what it holds. And once that divine seed takes root, it will grow in strength, in clarity, and in power, because it has been given the room to flourish without competition from what was never meant to remain. A detached woman is not easily manipulated because her identity, decisions, and emotions are anchored in something unshakable, God Himself. When your sense of worth is rooted in divine truth, you cannot be swayed by flattery, pressured by fear, or controlled by guilt. Manipulation thrives where there is a hunger for approval, a fear of rejection, or an unhealed wound that someone can exploit. But detachment severs those access points. It means you can appreciate someone's kindness without depending on it, and you can hear someone's criticism without being destroyed by it. A detached woman listens to counsel, but she filters it through the voice of God before acting. She is not driven by emotional highs or lows. Her responses are measured, deliberate, and rooted in discernment. This makes her dangerous to those who rely on emotional control because she will not bend to intimidation or false urgency. Detachment allows her to make choices based on purpose, not pressure. She can walk away from a deal, a relationship, or an opportunity if it conflicts with her assignment, no matter how appealing it looks. This strength does not come from arrogance, but from alignment. She knows who she is, whose she is, and what she has been called to do. As a result, her yes cannot be bought, and her no cannot be broken. She does not live in reaction to people. She lives in response to God. And because she is not emotionally entangled, she can recognize manipulation for what it is and refuse to participate. This freedom creates space for her to hear God's voice without it being drowned out by human agendas, making her unshakable in purpose and unmovable in obedience. Her detachment protects her destiny like a fortress walls a treasure. The walls are corresponding protection for draw. And there comes a moment when God will strip away every distraction, every false attachment, every voice that seeks to control or confuse you, not to leave you empty, but to leave you ready. This is the season you are stepping into. Your ears are about to tune into a frequency that others cannot hear, because you have chosen to let go of what most people cling to. You are not losing yourself. You are finding the truest version of yourself. The woman God designs before anyone's opinion shape you. When His voice comes, it will not be a whisper lost in the noise. It will cut through your spirit with clarity, authority, and direction. And when you hear it, you will not hesitate, you will not doubt, and you will not look back. You will rise, you will move, and you will fulfill every assignment with the unshakable confidence of a woman who belongs wholly to God. This is your moment to stand in divine clarity, unbound, unshaken, and unstoppable